Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Oklahoma County meeting of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association. It's a great week. We're having Thanksgiving this week, and I hope that you have a lot of things to be thankful for, and certainly the freedoms and the liberties that we have in our nation is something that we can give thanks for. Let's stand this evening for prayer and for the pledges. Lord Jesus, we come before you tonight. We're thankful for the blessings, for the liberties that we have in Christ Jesus. We're thankful that you are willing to sacrifice your life for us, Lord. We pray, Lord, that we will take and be reflective of your blessings in our life this week and Thanksgiving. We're thankful, Lord, for our founding fathers, for the wisdom that they showed in establishing our nation, and that they realized that the rights that we have come from you. We thank you, Lord, for their ability to articulate those freedoms and liberties. Lord, we pray that we'll be a good steward of what you've entrusted us with, that will leave our country a better country for the generations to come. In Christ I pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Again, we're Facebook Live. If you're watching tonight, please let us know where you're watching from. Hit the like button and the share button as well to let the people know that we're on Facebook Live. And we'll have a great meeting tonight and hope that you'll be able to participate online as well. At this time, it's my privilege to introduce to you the president of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, Mr. Don Liberty Spencer.
I had a state senator call me and ask me if I was going to actually change my name to that today. I said, well, who knows, because Facebook may throw me off again before this is over with and have to come up with Don Freedom Spencer or, something a little more creative down the line there. Does it look like we've got people showing up there, Galen?
We'll find out.
He's looking. All right, well, folks, you'd like to come down. Is it working, Anthony?
Yeah.
Good, that's fine. No, that's fine. I like to hear myself in 10-second delay. It's great. We've got a lot going on, and it's amazing. We've also got a guest here tonight with OCPA, which will be great because he's got an interest he's going to talk about that OK2A has a deep interest in. I want to make sure you have an interest in it, and I love it when someone else can do the educating on something so I don't have to do all of it. So that's just me because I've voted before. I'm a very lazy person. I don't like to have to do this, but unfortunately I just feel called that we've got to do it, and we've got to pick up the fight and move forward. So I've got a couple things to go over. For starters, who got a text alert, or message alert, anything today from OK2A? Look at all that. That's good. All right, if you guys don't have the OK2A app, I don't know what you're waiting on. You need to download it right now, and you just go into your search thing. It says OK2A, and then make sure you put that you want notifications on it. So when we send a notification, it comes straight to your phone, basically like a text. And you guys know we don't send thousands of them out to annoy the heck out of you. We send you stuff out there when it's important. So you got to make sure you've got that on your phone, because social media is just continuing to do whatever it can to crush the voice of liberty wherever it can. And this is one of our avenues around that. So you've got to get on that and just, I'll think about it, or I might do it. No, pick your phone up, make sure you do that. Okay, some things going on, which, like I say, there's a number of things, and we posted this on our website today. And if you're not familiar, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Philip Hancock is facing the death penalty on November the 30th of this month. So this is kind of, needless to say, a life and death situation that has taken place. Mr. Hancock in 2001 was called by an ex-girlfriend over to a home and was enticed to come into that home. Two other men were waiting there with a specific reason to try to force him into a cage inside of that home. Mr. Hancock shows up with no weapon, and actually takes the weapon away from one of the two thugs, uses it, and kills both of those thugs in self-defense from not being forced into that cage and stay there. Anybody here see that this would be a self-defense issue?
Absolutely.
Well, apparently in 2001, if you'll remember, there wasn't even the stand your ground law. There was a castle doctrine that if you were in your own home, you had the right to protect yourself in your own home. But if you're being drawn into an area where you have the legal right to be, since he was invited to this new area, he should have been able to defend himself. And the stand your ground law did not go into effect until 2003. So also, you guys are very well aware of that OK2A has worked diligently to strengthen the stand your ground laws and the castle doctrine to where it also includes businesses and places of worship over those years. So we, with this coming up, the attorneys for Mr. Hancock had contacted me because of some legislators who are genuinely concerned that this is an obvious self-defense case, and that self-defense was not allowed to be used at all for the defense. Also, it's so sad, the attorney at the time was addicted to illegal drugs, and his performance for this case was obviously not even that of a freshman law student that was taking place. So you have all these combinations of these things, and Mr. Hancock has sat in prison for 22 years as a result of this. So doing this, now I'm going to be the first to tell you, Mr. Hancock and his friends aren't exactly people you would find in church on every Sunday morning when this took place. But the thing is, that doesn't change self-defense and self-defense acts. That does not matter. And whether his previous background was something not desirable on that day, on that time, when he was lured into that home, self-defense was still a God-given right that was there available for him to take, and it should not be up to the state to take that away from him, and it has. So we produced a letter at OK2A to the governor requesting clemency for Mr. Hancock. To stop this death penalty on November the 30th that's getting ready to take place. Also, maybe some of you know that the Pardon and Parole Board voted 3-2 for the exact same thing, for clemency. And that doesn't happen very often. So this shows you that there is some movement that needs to take place. So like I say, we prepared a letter to the governor stating much of what I've already discussed with you here, that the stand your ground law, which was not in effect, is in effect now, but under God's law, it's been in effect since the beginning of time. So that should be recognized. There's one paragraph I want to read in here real short. I wrote, Governor Stitt, by approving this clemency, it would show Oklahoma is not merely a strong Second Amendment state, but it will also show we're a strong self-defense state as well. What's the point of being able to carry a firearm or use a firearm in self-defense if you're prosecuted for it? It doesn't serve much of a purpose. The two have to go together. So this is, like I say, this is a letter we produced for the governor, and he's got it and is taking it under consideration along with persuasion from other leaders in the state to address this. So I hope you can see people say, well, OK2A, you need to stay in your lane. You just do gun legislation. No, we don't. We're about liberty. And Mr. Hancock's liberty and life is at threat at the moment, and he needs to be pulled off of the death row issue on this immediately. So there's any questions on that? No questions?
Which county was this in?
Oklahoma County.
Right here. Wow.
Right here in Oklahoma County. Yep.
John?
Yes, sir.
I lost my question.
Okay, well, when you find it, just
Yeah.
you know where I'm at. That's okay. That's okay. All right, so here we go. All right, so that was one thing. Now, another, like I say, you guys got a message today of a concern that OK2A was brought to my attention. And actually, I already knew about it, but man, we've got so many of these other things going on. But it was brought to my attention yesterday that the Sarah Hill, who is working to be the Northern District Judge, who's been requested by Biden, and that Senator Langford is supporting this. And this gal is and I've been sent a lot of information and evidence that I still need to go over. But it appears that she strongly supports red flag laws, strongly will be against the Dobbs decision, which puts abortion decision back to the states, and a number of these other things. And so that's why that text went out this morning to you to make phone calls to Senator Langford and to Senator Mullins to stop this nomination. Well, you guys have done some good, and I appreciate it so much, because while I was driving to the meeting tonight, I got a call from Senator Langford. Now, to his credit, he is a gentleman and will listen to what's going on. So as I'm driving down the road, and he's telling me his side of what's going on with this, I said, well, Senator Langford, even in the last half hour, I've been sent a bunch of information that verifies her position on these things, and red flag laws is the quickest, most aggressive way that the left is going to take our gun rights away from us. So we are extremely defensive of that. I said, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care what part, if she's a part of the Cherokee Nation, I don't care if she's a part of the Communist Nation. Someone that's wanting to take away our gun laws, you lose me after that. And he tried to assure me that that's not what was taking place. So I asked him, and he was generous enough. I said, would you please let me look at all this information so I can process it? And after the holidays, because right now I care more about Thanksgiving and football than I do having to deal with this, just like you are. But unfortunately, it's been brought to my attention, and we have a number of members, as you've heard from, apparently, that this is an issue. Now, I also texted him the same thing we sent out this morning, and he responded back to him. So, and I've also sent that to Senator Mullins, and I've not heard back from Senator Mullins. I look forward to hearing back from him on this also. But I'd ask him, let me have time to process it after the holidays. I would like to have a conversation with you about this so I can follow up with this. And he agreed to that. So I thank him very, very much, so we can have this open conversation with the U.S. Senator on this. And for him to take the time tells me, two things. One, you guys have been calling. And two, he's genuinely maybe having his eyes and ears open to what's our absolute concern is about this. So kudos to that. And but like I say, we've got way too many U.S. senators that are willing to put through a candidate that will not defend the constitutional rights that we have. And it's no time. And I had to say this too, folks. Biden makes a suggestion, what should be the very first red flag that goes up? Biden. Hello? Hello? Yeah, so that's where I'm at on this too. So anyway, thank you, Senator Langford. We're going to continue the discussion on this. I appreciate your reaching out, and so we can work on this some more. So anyway, that's what's going on with that. Now, because of all this stuff that's gone on this week, we were going to release OK2A scorecard on grades for legislators, and I'm going to wait till after the holiday to do that, because once again, since I just mentioned, I'd rather be worrying about Thanksgiving and football games than this at the moment. But anyway, I will go ahead and let you guys know, because I know, and this is the part I like, legislators monitor this meeting, and they want to hear what's going on. Actually, some of them don't want to hear what's going on. But I will say, and right now, Governor Kevin Stitt has once again received an A for his excellent job on protecting and defending our rights. And I'm telling you, absolutely. And we also added, which we've never done before, another statewide position to this, and that's the state superintendent, Ryan Walters. We're giving him an A for doing a heck of a job defending rights across the board. Absolutely. Hey, thank you, State Representative Roberts just showed up at the back. Woo! There's a rock star. That's right. Roberts is here. So anyway, this is some of the stuff, and we're going to put this out for all and the coordinators will see it before everybody else. We'll make sure that they see that because we're still doing some little tweaks, and I'll take this weekend to finish because it's amazing. Unlike other scorecards, we are very diligent on what we put out because we know we have to, one, point out the good legislators along with the ones that aren't doing their job that we're supposed to. And so when I say, legislators, we have your backs, I am specifically referring to the ones that are defending our rights. It's that simple. Because if you're not defending your rights, I think we have established we will point that out and we will find someone that will. So I think we've established that. So be that as it may. Now tonight, make sure I'm not forgetting one other thing. Yep, nope, that was it. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to bore with. Oh, now also, before I forget to, today's what, Tuesday? Is that right?
Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday. I've had 3 U.S. Law Shield issues come up on Monday and Tuesday that people should have had U.S. Law Shield. You guys are familiar. The gentleman was at our last OK2A meeting when we had at Higher Plain Baptist Church. The FFL pastor that the ATF had gone in. Well, apparently there was a grand jury and they found him that they weren't going to do any charges. Great. So what do? They go come up with another grand jury. It was pointed out to me today that he needed to raise $85,000. And I said, $8,500? They said, no, $85,000 for his defense. For having some, on the forms that might be sloppy, he didn't put the comment in the right place from selling guns. And then now what they're doing is they're charging him with a felony for selling ammunition to a felon, which is a federal crime. And so it's not a state crime. So they're digging so far deep. Now here's the deal. Do you think a felon has ever walked into a Walmart, Dick's Sporting Goods? Well, no, Dick's, they don't sell anything that doesn't matter like that. Most appropriately named business there is. But the other Academy, walk in, pick up a box of shells, walk up to the cash register, pay cash, and walk out. Do you think a felon is capable of doing that? So how desperate are they? And it would not surprise me, ATF. Yes, ATF, that's right, ATF. It would not surprise me that they put a felon up to going in and buying from this guy to set him up to do it. It would not surprise me. I would not be surprised in the least at the way that they're doing this. And so, thank you. Oh, I also, by the way, I had this conversation with Senator Langford, said this is what's happening to this guy, and he said, get me the information on it. I will have some conversations with the ATF. Yay, Senator Langford. Let's go with that. Absolutely. So this guy, again, U.S. Law Shield is one thing you've got to be. Now, changing the subject to another one. This is my Monday morning call. I'm out of bed. I'm in my office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and a person who had previously ran for a statewide elected office, who didn't win but ran for it and is also politically known, has a son who was in a public park that recognizes another kid has a skateboard that belonged to his son. He goes up and he says, that's not your skateboard, that's my son's skateboard. He didn't call him being a thief or nothing else. He said, but that's my son's skateboard. And this young teenager produces a switchblade knife, opens it, and points it at the guy. The guy removes the pepper spray, sprays the teenager. And I can't remember if he actually left with a skateboard or not. But anyway, he's been charged with 2 felonies for theft of a skateboard and something else. Yeah. You think you need U.S. Law Shield? Because they have already spent $14,000 out of pocket, just to deal with this, and they've got a meeting on with the judge on the 22nd, and they hope that the judge will see through this. I think that's really a long shot, but this is taking place, and folks, like I say, you if you don't have it, if you've got it, thank God you've got it. And thank God you're ready to use it and you've got it in your pocket. But anyway, that's just some of the stuff that we're dealing with on that too. So yeah, that was my first thing Monday morning. How'd you like to have that call? Holy cow. So anyway. All right, now, anybody think that since especially we're talking about judge or a lady that's wanting to be the district judge by the name of, and I already just forgot her name, Hill. Sarah Hill. Judges are important.
Yes.
Because we've seen judge activists from the bench, and especially in Oklahoma, do some incredibly, I'm not an attorney and I can read this and it doesn't say that. How do you get there? And so there's so much of this that's politically activated and driven that it needs to be addressed. And OK2A is very willing to work whatever legislation we get to make sure we improve the quality of judges, and the same thing if they're not cutting it to get them out of there. So here tonight is Ryan Haney with OCPA, who is also, OCPA has an interest in this also because they're also, and I'm speaking for him and let him correct it, they're frustrated with what we're seeing too. That here we have good legislators doing good things, putting things up there only for an activist judges to bat it down and put it right back in the people's face, basically flipping us off is what's going on as far as I'm concerned. So Ryan is here tonight. Ryan, why don't you come on up? Ryan, I appreciate you being here tonight. Give them heck. We'll go from there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me be here and talk about what is a very important topic. I want to start by saying we so much appreciate OK2A and the things that Don does. I say a lot of things that are that a lot of people deem crazy. I'll sometimes go on Twitter and say things like men are men and women are women and men should use the men's room and women should use the women's room, and that has at times subjected me to some harassment, and I'm thankful for the freedoms that OK2A helps to protect. So thank you for all that you guys do, and you guys have been a great partner with OCPA on a lot of different issues. Before I get started, I just want to let everybody know, if you're not familiar with OCPA, that stands for the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. We've been around since 1993. You may be familiar with the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C., which was formed shortly before Ronald Reagan became the president. He looked at Heritage and said, hey, Heritage is great, but we need one in every single state. So not long after that, OCPA was formed, sort of with the goal of being sort of the Oklahoma's Heritage Foundation. So the brochure will tell you a little about who we are and some of our key wins. One of the reasons that judicial reform is so key is because this list of our victories, as Don said, the way we protect that is making sure that we have judges that share our values, right? And then if you want more information, or you're worried that you don't want to watch the video again, which you should watch the video again, I also brought a copy of Perspective magazine, which is a magazine that we put out a couple times a year. It's got a rather lengthy article by my friend Ben LePac, whose father serves with Rep. Roberts in the legislature, and it's all about judicial reform. And he's written a lot on the issue and knows about as much as anybody. But tonight I want to talk about the Judicial Nominating Commission. I want to talk about, yes, that boos and hisses are totally appropriate. I want to talk about the history of judicial selection, both in our nation's history as well as here in Oklahoma, and how we got the Judicial Nominating Commission. I want to talk about its makeup and who's on it and who can be on it and how that works. And then finally I want to get to, what do we need to do if we reform it? If by the end of the talk you're not convinced that it needs to be reformed, I think you've got to check your pulse. But if you are convinced, then the next question might be, well, what do we do to fix it? So I'd like to, for a brief moment, talk about the history of judicial selection in the United States. So if you read the Declaration of Independence, one of the complaints that the colonies had was that the king appointed judges, and if he did not like the rulings that he got, he yanked them.
Yep.
And so that was one of the issues that led to America's war for independence. And so when the Constitution was drafted, most of the states, their legislatures appointed their judges. Of course, at the same time, legislatures were also appointing U.S. senators, right? And we all know, I don't have to tell people in this room, but the U.S. Constitution has its own model where the president selects who they'd like when it's subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. And we'll get to sort of the pros and cons of that here in a bit. But needless to say, it's a good system that James Madison was, I think, right to put in. But again, at the beginning of the country, most of the states appointed their judges through the legislature. There was very little. There was democratic accountability in that you voted for your legislators, but there wasn't a ton of judicial or democratic accountability rather. Then the Jacksonian era comes around, right? And this is sort of a populist wave where all of a sudden it's like, no, we want populism, we want more elections, and so a lot of states move away from this model. So currently, the only two states that still have their judges appointed through the legislature are South Carolina and Virginia. Other states started to change, and Oklahoma was founded around sort of the tail end of that populist wave, and so for about 60 years, Oklahoma had partisan elections. So judges ran with R's, D's, I's next to their names, whatever other party might have been on the ballot, and that was working, or so everybody thought, for a long time. Around the 20s and 30s, that's the period that we call the progressive movement, right? And the idea behind the progressive movement is that we can't rely on elections and regular people to vote and say, who should be governing them, right? We need like a panel of experts, right? And I say experts with quotes because, of course, the idea is taking things out of the political process, but of course you can't take, the appointment of judges out of the political process. It's always political. And so that's when we get the rise of sort of the administrative state. Now where the drainage ditch in your backyard is governed by some unelected bureaucrat with a PhD at the EPA. We all our kids have to be educated the same because some unelected bureaucrat with a PhD at the Department of Ed thinks that that's the way it needs to be done. And that was all grew out of the progressive movement. So the American Bar Association in the 1930s comes up with this model for appointing judges. And what they say is, well, we need to take this out of the hands of the electorate. We need to find an independent body that is outside of government, that is sort of apolitical, and they should be the ones to sort of at least screen or vet our judges and justices. Now, that was not catching on in Oklahoma until the 1960s. In 1965, Justice Corn at the Oklahoma Supreme Court admitted that for 30 years he had taken bribes. And he had given some of these bribes to some of his colleagues on the bench. And it was a huge scandal. And, if there's one thing that you got to hand it to progressives, they never let a scandal go to waste. So 2 years later, in 1967, there are two ballot measures put on the ballot in Oklahoma. Both are judicial reform ballots. So the first one is State Question 447. And what that did was establish the Judicial Nominating Commission. And I promise in a minute I'll talk about the makeup.
Is that a constitutional or statute?
It's a constitutional amendment. And they were both constitutional amendments, both state questions. That was 447. It established the JNC. And I'm going to start calling it the JNC because that's easier. And then there was State Question 448. State Question 448 would have moved us from partisan elections to nonpartisan elections. And State Question 448, the election initiative, got 55% of the vote. The JNC got 52% of the vote. And you might think, well, how the heck do we end up with the JNC? If it got 52% of the vote, the other one got 55% of the vote. And this is where you just kind of have to sit back and admire the craftiness of whoever drew this up. State Question 447 had a clause in it that said if both of these win, and I'm paraphrasing here, but if both of them win, this is the one that controls. So even though more people voted for the other state question, the state question, which is funny, that's in law, it just doesn't matter, right? So what happened is we got the JNC because that's what it said, and people weren't really paying attention. It's tough to pay attention to something that minute. So the question is then, well, then what is the JNC? Who's on it? What do they do? What's their role? And the answer is the JNC is made up of 15 people. 6 of them are attorneys that are selected that are via election by the Oklahoma Bar Association. So I probably don't have to tell this group that the Oklahoma Bar Association, well, rather, really lawyers as a demographic tend to be further to the left of the general population, and that's true in lefty California, and it's true here in red Oklahoma. So 40% of the JNC is made up of attorneys elected by the members of the Oklahoma Bar Association. So I get a vote on that. Of course, lawyers, we are less than 1/2 of the population, and we elect 40% of the JNC. And those are the quote-unquote subject matter experts. And to some, I say that, I mean, to some degree that's very true, right? Like the people who are on there have oftentimes practiced with a person who is being considered for judge, or if it's a district judge that's being considered for an appellate position, maybe they've practiced before that judge, they've had a judge hear a case before, and they may very well have some special knowledge about the nominee. The next 6 are appointed by the governor, and these are staggered terms. But the governor can't just put whoever he wants or he or she wants on there. No more than 3 of them can be from the same party. So this is, again, sort of like we're trying to make this apolitical. It's very ethereal and touchy-feely. Like we don't want this to smell like politics. And then the pro tem of the Senate gets a pick, and the Speaker of the House gets a pick, and then all 14 of those get together and they pick one more person. Now, the governor, the pro tem, the speaker, and then that at-large person, none of them can be attorneys, and none of them can have an attorney in their immediate family. So the members that are chosen from the Oklahoma Bar Association, 100% of the subject matter expertise are these folks that are chosen by the Bar Association. Now, I've never served on the Bar Association. I don't think the Oklahoma Bar would ever elect me to be on there, and the governor can't put me on there. Neither can the pro tem or the speaker. But I've talked to a few people who have been on the JNC, and what they will tell you is that typically what happens is the non-lawyer members defer to the lawyer members. And that's not exactly how you would want things to go, right? And of course, we don't even know who's voting for what because the JNC is not subject to the Open Records Act or the Open Meetings Act. So it's all done like in total secret. I mean, this is not the way a Republican form of government should be run. Now, why is this important? I think back with me, if you will, to 2016. Donald Trump has just won the presidency. Quite frankly, shocking a lot of people. And you could point to a number of different reasons why he won. And I believe one of the most compelling reasons for why he was able to convince so many conservatives to go out and vote for him who were skeptical is because he put out a list and he said, look, if you elect me to be president, I will pick people from this list for positions on the United States Supreme Court, and then for that matter, the courts of appeals and even the district courts. In fact, at the time, Oklahoma Supreme Court Justice Patrick Wyrick made that list, and Trump did appoint him to the Western District of Oklahoma. And he made good on that campaign promise. To his credit, frankly, I was skeptical, and since he put Justices Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Gorsuch on, the court has been cranking out great opinion after great opinion, right? So obviously, I'm sure this group is aware that there was the great Second Amendment case that came out of New York. We had a great decision on affirmative action this summer. The Dobbs decision was obviously a great decision. There was the case seriously reining in the administrative state in the EPA case that came out of West Virginia. It's been something to behold. This court, frankly, take a U-turn, right? And so, why do I bring that up? I bring that up because if anyone here said they wanted to run for governor in 2026, and they went out on the campaign trail and they thought, well, hey, Trump did this, that it worked for him. I will come up with a list. I'll get together with Ryan and the folks at the Federalist Society and some of the other conservative groups, and I'll sort of comb the list of who they think would make good for a good Oklahoma Supreme Court justice, or someone good on the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals or Civil Appeals, and I'll put together a list, and I'll say, hey, if you elect me, these are the people that I will consider for those judicial positions. Well, the JNC has the opportunity to blackball every last person on that list, because everyone who applies for a judicial vacancy at the appellate level, so again, we're talking about the Supreme Court, Court of Civil Appeals, Court of Criminal Appeals, first has to go through the JNC. Right? So you've heard about who the makeup of the people are. Now you know that they are the original vetters of all of those people. They look at all the candidates, they select 3 names. They send those 3 names to the governor, and he or she has to pick one of those 3. They can't say, JNC, these are all dogs with fleas, and you need to send me something else, or send me 3 new names. If the governor doesn't pick within 60 days, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court picks one of them. So this is a serious problem, right? And so if you were to do that, if you were to come up with a list, I believe, frankly, that the JNC would make sure that none of your nominees ever got through, unless they had to. I mean, if they only get 3 applicants, then they send all 3 along, unless one of them, doesn't pass a background check or something. So it's a real problem. And so I think that the question that we probably should be asking at this point is, okay, well, I agree with you, Ryan. That sucks. That's not good. What is the best solution for moving forward? At OCPA, we believe that the system that James Madison came up with and enshrined in the U.S. Constitution is the best model. And why? Why is that? Well, let's think about what is the purpose of a judge, right? Judges, unlike legislators, unlike executive, people like the governor, they don't run with R's and D's next to their name. Why? Because they're not policymakers. At least they're not supposed to be. They are the best analogy is the judge as an umpire, right? An umpire sits behind the home plate, and they judge whether the ball is in the strike zone or it's out of the strike zone. They don't make the strike zone. They don't get to enlarge the strike zone or narrow the strike zone. They just call balls and strikes. And that's what a judge should do.
Yes.
In order to do that, one of the things that a judge should have is independence. Hamilton talks about this at length in the Federalist Papers. And one of the things that particularly the lawyers will talk about when they talk about how great the JNC is, they say, well, this is how we get judicial independence. It's independent. But of course, what Hamilton points out is it's how judges are retained that's important for independence. And what the founders decided was that if we gave judges life tenure and we don't allow the legislature to fiddle with their wages, that is the way to get independence. The way they balance that with democratic accountability is that we get to go vote for the governor and we vote for our elected officials, and if we don't like what they're doing, we can vote those bums out. So I think it's very fitting that the meeting was actually started by talking about this very subject at the federal level, because we are able to reach out to our U.S. senators and say, hey, this is a real problem. This is not someone that we think you should vote for. I know a little bit about that situation. I'm sympathetic about the situation that Senator Langford is put in. I don't totally agree with the remedy, but I'm sympathetic to the fact that they don't have a majority in the Senate. He is serving under a Democrat president, and it does look like they're going to get a good one through along with Sarah Hill. So I'm sympathetic to the very real issues that he's facing. But the reality is, and I think the important part, is that democratic accountability is there on the front end. And if we don't like, what the governor, the people that the governor are putting forward, or if we do like them, but we don't like that our senator is voting against that person, well, then we can vote those bums out, and that's where sort of the democratic accountability comes in. So Don asked a great question early on. This would require a constitutional change. Oklahoma conservatives are very skeptical about changing the Oklahoma Constitution, and I get that. I really do. But let me tell you, the Oklahoma Constitution is a dog, and it's a dog with fleas. It is a
Amen.
terrible, terrible
Amen.
Constitution,
Yep.
and it needs to be changed, and I believe that this is ground zero for changing it. So it's going to, you are probably aware there's a couple ways to get things on the ballot. The first is to go out and collect signatures, which is time and money intensive. The other way is to go through the legislature, so that is what we've chosen to do. I mean, OCPA already has a presence up at the legislature, so I think it makes sense for us to try to get this passed through the legislature. So what we would ask for everyone here to do is to reach out to your elected officials. I think it's more important. I mean, I go all around the state sort of preaching the message of liberty, and especially, this year this is going to be sort of our holy war, that this is going to be our top issue. And I talk about this all over the state, but I think it's especially important for people in urban and suburban communities to reach out to their lawmakers and tell them why this is important. And why do I say that? Because the number one the main opposition to this is going to be from the Bar Association. And where do all of the lawyers live? They live in Oklahoma City and they live in Tulsa and the surrounding suburbs. Yes, people are, people from Bartlesville and Weatherford are going to hear from the local attorneys in their community, but there just aren't very many. But like, if you go down to the business district in Oklahoma City, you can't swing a cat without hitting 5 lawyers. So they're going to be lighting up the phones, and so it's really important that everyone here reaches out to their lawmaker, tells them how important it is. And then I hope you'll have me back out in the summer when it's put on the ballot, and we can talk about now going out to our friends and the people that we go to church with and our neighbors and everyone in our social circles and telling them to get out and vote for this constitutional change. So we don't have a bill number yet. I'm sorry, or a resolution number. It's going to be a resolution. Still, I know we've floated the language out to Don and some others. We were trying to make sure we have buy-in from all of our partners, people like AFP and the Federalist Society and some other groups like that. Certainly, like I said, once we have a number, we'll get that out to OK2A, and I'm sure that they'll disperse that out to everybody and let you know, what you need to tell your lawmakers that you'd like to see passed. Yeah.
The concerns I've heard is that I personally like the federal model because we've seen it work.
Yeah.
Coming down to the state level, the concern is, and where this has also been stopped in legislation before, is that the House wants to have a say in it also.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Is what your proposal still sticking with the federal model, or do you have something that tiptoes into to make the state House of Representatives happy that they have a say-so?
Yeah, that's a great question. In case people couldn't hear online, the question was, the federal model. Under the federal model, the Senate acts as the advise and consent role, and the House of Representatives really doesn't have any say in judicial nominees. And the question is, are we open to some sort of House oversight as well? And the answer is, that's not a deal killer for us. I think in whatever language we propose, because here's the thing, and I'll be honest, in the language that I sent you, I literally copied and pasted from the federal Constitution and just changed and just
pretty good.
Well, and I just changed you change president to governor, because again, I mean, I'm going out and saying I think the James Madison model is the best model. So why I'm not one to reinvent the wheel. If I can just take what's in the U.S. Constitution and put it in the Oklahoma Constitution, frankly, I think the more we do that, the better. And so that's what we'd like to see. But oftentimes, when you give the legislature something that they haven't asked for, they do want to change it. I think that there's probably if the House is insistent on that, I think probably like a joint committee probably makes sense. Similar to the joint committee on administrative rules or the joint committee on Indian affairs, that sort of thing. But I mean, yeah, that's not going to be a deal breaker for us. Even though right now it's so clean and it's nice because it looks like the U.S. Constitution, and I really like that. So. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm happy to entertain questions.
Right.
Yes, Terry.
Yeah. Should we reach out to our legislators now or wait until we have a resolution number? And if it's now, how would be the best way for our members to word it in their emails and their to their legislators?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, for folks on Facebook, should we start reaching out to our lawmakers now? And if so, how should we word that? I never think it's too early to get people thinking about
My thought
something.
as well.
I mean, the Senate just finished their Republican caucus retreat. I don't think the House hasn't done theirs yet, have they?
No.
So yeah, I mean, I would love it if the House Republican caucus went into their retreat with this issue sort of being talked about. And so I think if I were to write to, I'm represented unfortunately by a Democrat, but if I were to write my representative, I would say, hey, I recently learned about this Judicial Nominating Commission. That sounds pretty awful. I also saw the abortion decisions that came out of the Oklahoma Supreme Court in March and May, and then frankly last week again, if that's an issue that's important to you. I do not think that the appellate courts reflect Oklahoma values, and I think we need a change.
Yes.
And so I hope you'll be open to a resolution to repeal the JNC and replace it with something like the U.S.
So
Constitution.
that's the key phrase to use, the Judicial Nominating Commission, is it?
Yes. Or,
JNC.
yeah, and again, if you think, oh, I don't know if I'll remember that, because I know my memory is not good. Go grab one of these. Again, the first article in there is titled, "A Judicial Selection Plan for the People, Not the Lawyers." The lawyers often refer to this as merit selection, right? Because again, it's not political; it's merit. I heard Ben one time call it lawyer selection, and I think that's a much better term for it. But yeah, if you want to grab perspective, so that you know, you can go and read all about it and refresh your memory, or you can watch the recording again. So yeah.
Ryan, for those watching online, you have two great pamphlets for us, booklets. Is this information available to them online?
That's right. Yes. So if you go to OKCAthink.org, you can find this online, and I have a blog post that I just dropped today on the decision that was handed down last week, striking down 3 pro-life laws, which was. It was a 5-4 decision. All 4 dissenters wrote a separate dissenting opinion, and I basically went through and talked about the various dissents and the nice things that they highlighted. Because, look, I mean, and I'm not here to say that every single judge or every single justice that we have up there is bad, but as a body, it's not great, and it needs reform.
That's OCPA Think.
Yeah, THINK.
THINK. Okay.
.org. Yep. And if you go there and you just search, like there's a search bar, you can search Judicial Nominating Commission or JNC. This is something that frankly we've been writing about for years. It does seem like it's a great time to get it done particularly because of the abortion issues that have come out of the Supreme Court in the last year. I mean, there were a lot of Oklahomans very excited about Dobbs because, like Don said, it took that issue back to the states. Dobbs actually says that it is now up to the elected officials in the states to decide this issue. Well, like last I checked, judges aren't elected officials. I mean, they do sit for retention ballots, which are basically without teeth because nobody's ever been successfully recalled. But they are not elected representatives. They are neither elected nor do they represent us. I mean, this is another issue that I don't want to go too far in the weeds in. But we have these judicial districts, and years ago there was some reform to that. But of course, folks in rural Oklahoma, and I love our folks in rural Oklahoma, but they'd say, well, we want representation at the court. Well, you don't get representation at the court. You get representation at the legislature. Judges are calling balls and strikes. It shouldn't matter if a judge is from Cotton County or Oklahoma County. They should read the law, interpret the law, and tell the parties whether they're inside or outside the strike zone. I'll never forget, at the time I was living somewhere else, and I was represented by yet another Democrat. And we lived
Where do you live?
Well, I mean, I used to live in a worse place, but now I just happen to be on. I live in Kevin Calvey's old district, but now it's Andy Fugit. So, yeah. So anyhow, but it's funny because I lived in the same neighborhood as my senator, and I ran into her at like a neighborhood Easter egg hunt, and I introduced myself, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you're the guy wearing me out on Twitter about the judicial districts." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I'm just really worried about rural representation." I'm like, "You have one of the most urban districts in the state. Why are you worried about rural representation?" And then furthermore, going back, it's like you don't get representation at the court, right? Like courts are not for that. Courts are to settle disputes between two parties, as an umpire judges a strike zone. So, I mean, that's kind of getting off into the weeds a little bit and off topic. But, if we get this fixed, maybe that's the next thing is the judicial districts. But right now, the most important thing is the JNC. Yeah.
More of a comment than a question.
I love those.
Well, praise it.
Because then I don't have to answer.
Has OCPA ever considered doing their own scorecard on judges? Because the troops out here in the trenches, they don't know these judges from the man in the moon. And a scorecard from people that know their decision records and so forth would be invaluable.
Yes, we have considered it.
Uh-huh.
It's a resources issue. We just don't right now. We don't have the resources to keep up with it. It's also a little more difficult to. It's hard to have objective criteria because so much of it is. Let's take like a sort of the issue of non-economic damages. So years ago, the legislature passed a tort reform measure that said, in an injury case, not a death case, because the death cases are actually they're in the Constitution, which is weird. If you have an injury case, your medical bills are compensable 100%. So whatever you got to go and be in the hospital for 3 weeks, 100% of that is compensable. But your non-economic damages, things like pain and suffering that are a lot harder to quantify, they also just happen to be the thing that juries tend to go crazy over. They were going to cap those at $300,000. And the court struck that down a couple of years ago, saying it was a special law because it treated non-death cases differently than death cases, wrongful death cases. And of course, that's just bad judging. It's like they interpreted the law wrong. I mean, the prohibition on special laws was designed for, at the time, divorce laws were very strict, and so what legislatures would often do is their buddy who was politically connected, they'd give him individually a divorce. They'd grant him a divorce. Well, that is a special law that is not allowed. Not treating these two types of cases differently, especially when one of them is in the Constitution and the legislature can't do anything about it anyway. So it's a little harder to be objective, and it's also harder to because there's times where you can come to the right decision with a bad analysis. I mean, the decision last week is bad analysis and bad decision, so that's a little bit easier. But we have a legislative scorecard like y'all do, and we try as the best we can to tell the lawmakers, hey, this is a bill we're going to score, we're supportive or we're not supportive, and I feel like that's a little more fair. I would love to do that. I don't want to be the person to do it though, because that would mean reading a bunch of trash opinions, and frankly, a lot of times they don't even write an opinion. Right, and that's a whole nother topic that I could probably go on for another 5 more minutes about. But I mean, they should write opinions. They should give the litigants and future litigants some direction and say this is why we decided it this way, not just you lose. Yeah.
Would OCPA consider supporting legislation that would require cameras in courtrooms so we the people can view judges, prosecutors, and even law enforcement on how they work in the courtroom?
I'd have to think about that. It's possible. I remember Justice Scalia was asked about that once, and he said, I would support it if I thought that people would actually watch an entire oral argument, but he feared that all that would come of that would be sound bites and sound clips, and I actually think he's probably right about that. I just don't think that most people have the attention span to really watch an entire hearing or whatnot. I think they really... yeah, well, some people do, but...
It has seemed to help with law enforcement that they know that they are being recorded
Okay.
for their performance, And I would say overall, even though you still see some horrific things, overall, there is an improvement in what they're doing. And since,
Yeah.
even if it is a soundbite, that if a judge does something irrational at one moment, I still would like to see it.
Sure. Yeah, the other and there was there was a recent case up in Lincoln County. You may have read about this, where there was a camera in the courtroom, and it caught the judge like surfing Facebook and texting with her bailiff, all kinds of terrible stuff. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is, I mean, a lot of legal proceedings have a court reporter there,
Right.
and so you've got that. So that's like one backstop. But I agree. I mean, I definitely support them for law enforcement. I love that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's something that we'd be open to.
So you're okay with the concept?
I'd have to think about it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, that's where we're going.
Cool.
Okay.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
How would you protect someone in the courtroom that maybe did not want to be identified, say in a rape case or a,
Oh, that was gonna be the exception.
you know?
Protecting a victim and protecting a juvenile was
Oh.
pretty much a given that would not be
Oh.
permitted.
Yeah, it's a good thought. That's why I hesitate to sort of give a thumbs up or down one way, kind of hearing it for the first time. Any other questions, like on the JNC? I mean, I can take questions on whatever, but
So you're not gonna take questions on Sooners winning or Cowboys?
I'm Sooners all the way. But someone needs to lose so we can go to the Big 12 championship game.
Works for me. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Sam.
Appreciate it very much.
Oh, one more thing. Sure. I've got a sign up sheet. If you'd like to get emails from us on this issue, we send out one of the things we like to do is send out form emails. So during session, when a bill's about to come up, we send out a form email that you can fill out and then send to your lawmakers. You just kind of
It's good stuff. It's
I'm
very
on the
good
list.
stuff.
It's well worth the time to read.
Absolutely.
it really helps.
It really helps, and like I say, your explanation what's going on, which I knew that there were problems. It's good to get into the woods a little bit on what these problems are. I wanted to know the history of it, and if you go back, what was going on in this country in 1965? There was some upheaval stuff, and so if you look back, but also because of this. And he made the best point that our state constitution was one of the worst pathetic pieces of paper probably produced, because the United States Constitution was done in 4 pages. The Oklahoma was 115. And remember, and now you guys have heard me for many years, that our founding state Second Amendment protection, that your rights shall never be prohibited, but the legislature shall regulate the carrying of weapons. And what was that first law the state legislature did? You shall not carry a pistol, rifle, or shotgun on or about your person, whether loaded or unloaded. What Second Amendment? So the state legislature, early on, we've had to work way uphill this whole time to get back, because they took all of our rights away. And then, so you want to go hunting? Okay, here's your little bit of that right back. Oh, okay, so you want to defend yourself in your own home? Well, okay, here's a little bit of that right back. But if you use it, we're going to prosecute you. But here's a little bit of that right back. So this is why for years I have been concerned, because people say, well, if you've got an issue on a gun thing, just sue them and take it to court. Well, we've got terrible court rulings that specifically state that you can't have a pistol on your person in your own front yard. You can be prosecuted for it, and was done, and that the legislature can outlaw the ownership and possession of a pistol, which was done by the State Criminal Court of Appeals, which is why I am so far behind, getting behind this effort to change our system. And I'm with you a little bit. I don't want the House to be involved in the judicial process, because I want the federal model. But if that's what it takes to pull this from the JNC, we're going to turn and pinch our nose and go for it, because at least, like I say, I can walk. You can walk into that building on 23rd and Lincoln, and you can tell your legislator, this is what I expect from you. Right now with the JNC, it's this mystery thing back behind here, but don't look behind that. Don't look behind that, because So like I say, and we've seen so many rulings, and the one that really hacks me off the most, well, I say the most, there's really a top 10 list. But if anyone has ever been to the United States Supreme Court, anybody ever been in there? Beautiful building, incredible. You go in, and you know what's depicted in a carving in marble up on the wall? The Ten Commandments. Moses carrying the Ten Commandments there. But we can't have the Ten Commandments placed on a public property out in front of the Oklahoma State Capitol. How can that be? And that is because of our judicial system made sure that it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's out in front of our property.
It's out in front of the OCPA property now. And I don't think the OCPA, I'm speaking out of turn here, has too much heartburn if it got moved back to where it should be with the people itself.
We'll be all right with that.
And the second part is, I think there's enough people to say, you guys keep that, that's fine. We're going to make even a bigger one so they can see it from Texas or see it from Washington, D.C. We're going to make it up the whole side of that building. It's what we really should be doing. So anyway, yes, sir.
It's my understanding that in the Oklahoma Constitution, every 20 years, there's supposed to be a constitutional convention to modify or to improve the Constitution, and we've never had one.
I think
That is correct.
it's been 60 years since it was done.
I don't know that
It's ever been done. Okay, well, there you go. So, so again, and keep remember, I'm a Sooners fan too. So just take this with the love of my heart. This state was founded on thieves.
Yeah.
We're bragging. Hey, we got thieves that did this. I mean, this is what. And one of the best things, Pistol Pete. Pistol Pete was a bona fide law enforcement officer that you needed someone with some guts. But if you have Pistol Pete or even an emblem of Pistol Pete while you're on that campus, what happens? You're in trouble. You're in trouble. So this is so much of our foundation, and that and this is why I was a huge proponent for open carry in 2012. Not just because we're getting a small part of our right back, but because people can see good people carry guns and they're not a problem. And that if there were so many people that were so bad carrying guns, this whole thing would all be gone anyway. But it's not. So that's why we continue, and that's why I pushed, and I like to say, and people are snickering at us. I've already gotten some snickers. Oh, you're never going to get that judges thing changed. Well, you know what? That's what they said about constitutional carry too. They told me for 9 years we wouldn't get that changed.
Yeah.
So, folks, we've just got to work, and he's exactly right. If we got to take some parts of this we don't want, let's look at if we're getting 85% of what we want, which is pulling the JNC out of this, because like I say, it's just amazing. I mean, there must have been some serious backroom deals going on top of this to get this on the ballot in the 1960s to happen anyway. I bet there was sacks full of cash that was being passed around to make sure that happened. So anyway, but we're going to continue to push that. But like I say, Ryan, thanks so much for being with us here. Also, folks, he didn't bring it up. I will. It's going to be real easy for this next election, because where it says state Supreme Court's ballot of retention, you don't even have to remember their names. You just write no, and no. Because the three that are up are three that did this terrible rulings that just took place last month. Terrible. So it's real. I don't even know their names. Don't matter. No. And then at the same time, now this is Don's perfect world. We get the legislation he's talking about. We get it done. If we get it passed and it goes into effect, what would it be?
Probably 60 days after the November election.
So it would be, okay, so it would be in February of 2025?
Yes.
I think that's about right. So, in Don's perfect world, you get rid of these three judges in November. Governor Stitt would be able to pull who he wants for those three to replace those three immediately. Can you imagine the change this would be for Oklahomans and the rights and protections? My gosh, and this could last for a generation. And so, if, like I said, that's in Don's perfect world. So, and like I said, and like he said, there's never been a judge kicked off that court. Well, first time for everything, folks. Let's do it, and let's start talking about it now. See, don't even worry about their name. Just all you got to know is the word no. No retention. No. That's all you've got to do. That's all you've got to do. So we'll see how that goes on up. And like I say, it's sad that people. I'm stunned that people actually just check the box yes without even knowing. That's just always amazed me too. So anyway, all right. Here's what we do, Pastor. I'm going to have you. I want you to read Psalms 100, and I meant to tell you that earlier, and I forgot.
Okay.
So read Psalms 100 before we break and leave tonight. One more. Oh yeah, Terry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Terry. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me.
Oh, I have no
You
problem
guys,
reminding.
I know you don't. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Terry Thompson. I'm Director of Operations. I want to show everyone in the room and online a map. You can't read it, but you can see the colored and the white counties.
I'm doing the van.
Oh,
Get it in the close.
okay. How's that?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
A little higher.
All right.
He's covering your face up.
I'll get a big vote. Folks, where we have white counties, we do not have a chapter for OK2A. Folks down in southeast Little Dixie, what's going on down there? The whole southeast corner of the state is white with a few exceptions. Anyway, you can reach me through Facebook, or I'm going to give my phone number out twice, 580-670-0357. 580-670-0357. Folks, all these counties need to have an OK2A chapter is to have a patriot step forward and be willing to be a coordinator. I will work closely with the coordinators. I've been doing this for 4 years up in K County. Folks, we need to color this entire map and the counties that are colored. A lot of those coordinators would love to have somebody helping them. Makes this a lot easier if they've got 2 or 3 or 4 people helping turn the wheel. So again, Terry Thompson, you can reach me through any of our Facebook pages and give me a holler. Folks, how bad is it going to have to get before you get involved?
That's right.
This whole thing is coming unraveled, and it's time to fight back. I've been doing this for 4 years. I sleep well at night since I got involved with this because I'm fighting back. It's better, when you're fighting evil, you either lay down and let them put their foot on your throat, or you stand up and fight. And fighting is a hell of a lot more fun.
Amen.
Thank you, Don.
All right. Woo. All right. Okay. As a tradition that I'm starting tonight, on the eve of Thanksgiving. I actually got that right, didn't I? The eve of Thanksgiving. I'm going to ask Pastor Barry this will be our prayer for leaving this meeting tonight, Psalms 100.
In Psalm 100, the psalmist wrote, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name. For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations." Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. Have a good evening, folks.
If you're not signed up for the OCPA newsletter, come do it before you leave.
Yes, sir.
You read that like you've done.